Hey, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Sharice and I help people heal from trauma and toxic relationships. I am doing a video that represents the month for every month of this year, and May's theme is Black Motherhood. I recently watched a video by Mr. Jason Wilson called Teaching Boys Not to Manipulate Their Moms, and I had a great discussion with my mother about it. I also shared it on my Facebook because I felt like it was such a great discussion. So in today's video, I'm going to cover like my parenting style as a unmarried Black woman living in America, and then what I've done when my son has manipulated me. If that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe to my channel, give this video a like, and share it with somebody you think it may help. So I wanted to cover my parenting philosophy first. One of the things that's super important that I felt like I learned parenting skills when as I had my son. I had him young and I was taking all these child development courses. And so across the board, what all these people say is that the first 5 years of life is super important. Everything sorts of encoded during that time. And after that, it's pretty hard to change habits and the way children learn. It's not impossible, right? Because my favorite age group to work with is teenagers. My son is a teenager now. He's making 15 in a few months. But it's very hard, right? Prevention is better than cure. It's very hard if there's been a lot of trauma in those first 5 years, if there hasn't been a lot of love, if the information that the child has been given is, skewed or negative, it's hard to unlearn that. And so when I was parenting my son, it was very important for me to really hone in on those first 5 years. And then maybe I was a little anal about making sure he didn't have a bunch of traumatic experiences, right? I didn't rule anybody out for anything. I was, very vigilant because I had worked with so many kids who family members, right, had harmed them in some kind of way. And so I wanted to make sure, nobody was getting at my son like that. One of the most important things during those first 5 years is to train a child in emotional regulation, right? We see so many adults today who have poor emotional regulation. And emotional regulation is really, how do you calm yourself down when you get upset? Whether you're crying or sad, or whether you're angry and want to get physically violent, how do you manage your emotions in a way that you can still function, right, rationally with the people around you? So think temper tantrums, right? They call it terrible twos. What do they call the threes? Kids still have, 2 and 3 is one of those times when kids are really figuring out, who am I? What can I get away with? And so they push those boundaries. If they don't learn it at 2, 3, right? By the time they get to kindergarten, they're the menace at school. They're the menace at school. And then if they don't find a teacher who can teach them how to calm down, or another adult who can really rein in their emotions, then they become a junior high student. They become a high school student who's a terror. That's really how it works. And then guess what? They all grow up. They all grow up, right? You're a child for such a brief period of time compared to your adult years, right? 18 and that's it. But even still, by 12, especially for boys, like, who's rating in a 13-year-old who now feels like he's already a man? I mean, come on. You know some wild 13-year-olds who feel like they can buck at an adult male, like all this craziness. So as a parent, it's super important for me to view myself as raising an adult. I am teaching my son to be a contributing member of society, to be helpful, to give back, right? We don't just want to be a leech on the system, right? You don't just want to be a person who's constantly taking. You want to help your community in some kind of way. And helping others really is a help for yourself because it gives you a sense of purpose, autonomy, like why are we here, right? It brings so much happiness, I think, to be able to do something well, which I think is super important for boys as they go through manhood. And so I have one of those unpopular opinions about manhood or raising boys to be men. I think boys need men. I think boys need men. I think having the perspective that a mom is the mom and the dad is pretty detrimental. If you look at the outcomes from those sorts of families where the moms are overbearing or the moms block access to their son's father, or hasn't created this environment where there are other men present, right? I feel like women and men are different. The average woman and the average man. I know there are feminine men, I know there are masculine women, but I'm talking about the average man, the average woman. I'm one of those average women, right? Feminine, right? I'm 5'5", I'm like 155, 60 pounds. Like, I'm not a big person. I don't have all the muscles. I don't have a lot of testosterone. Like, I'm pretty much an average woman, okay? So when you think about the average man who is bigger and stronger, has a different viewpoint, has gone through the world in a different way, boys need men. And so one of the things that I did for my son was we moved to Atlanta, where his father lives, because he needs his father, especially going through this transition period from boyhood to manhood. He's also gonna have, like I'm saying, it's not happening to me and not to him. I am going to throw him a birthday party for his 16th birthday, and really signifying in his brain this is a transition from boyhood to manhood, and that there are different expectations for men than there are for boys. So in addition to his father, because I really think a tribe, a community raises a child up, I have made sure my son has had access to other males. So I have a brother-in-law, I have a kind of brother, well, they're not married. I have other men in my life who can help, right? Who can show up when needed. I also have placed my son in very man-centered things, man things. I love men, okay? I love men. Black men are my favorite, but I love men. So he's in Muay Thai and he's in boxing. My son is a masculine boy, right? So he likes all the boy things. If you've ever been around little children, you can see the differences between young little boys, their activity level, their interests, and young little girls. I'm just talking about the average, right? There are tomboys. There are also boys who like to dress in dresses, or, know they're gay, or all that stuff. There's all of that, but I'm just talking about the average. And so my son has access to a lot of different ways of manhood, of being a man. There's not just one way to be a man. And so it's important that, hey, you have your father as an example. You also have all these other different men who are successful and happy with their lives, who are partnered, right? Happy people, right? I love happy people. I love people who love their life. So having access to these men, I think, is very, very helpful for him when he's figuring out, well, how do I want to show up in the world? What's the version of manhood that resonates the most with me? He has all these examples and he can do it. And my last important point under my parenting philosophy is an understanding that I think one of the primary goals for manhood is controlling a man's sex drive. If you know men, right? A man can look at 10 different women and say, "Oh, I have sex with all of them." The perspective is just different versus the typical average woman is saying, "No, I'm not trying to have sex with all of them. Maybe that one, right? Maybe that one, or maybe none, or maybe the one over there." But women view things differently, and I think men and women have a different relationship when it comes to sex. So what's super important to me is to be able to provide appropriate sex education to my son. And that really starts from like 2. Sex education starts at like 2, with naming body parts appropriately, talking about good touch, bad touch. And then as they get older, you start talking about the differences in puberty. If you are an adult existing right now watching this video, you know they were 12 and 14-year-olds having sex. So thinking that it's not appropriate to talk to a child about sex, I think is very silly. Most kids have seen porn by the time they turn 12, okay? So it's really in your best interest to get ahead of the curve, to have these conversations with kids. And then when you look at the state of things right now in the hookup culture and the way people are using sex, are they happy? I don't think they're happy. Because the STD rates and the proliferation of all these empty, unhappy people, I think a part of that is sex. And so men need to understand that, yes, you could have sex with all these women, but is that going to satisfy your soul? Is that really going to bring you peace and joy in the long term? Right? You decide for yourself. But having those conversations with my son are super important, such that when he's ready to have sex, I know that he's going to be very comfortable coming to me to discuss safe sex and how to approach, all those things, because I've set the foundation for, having open and honest communication with my son. And so I say all that to say, I think I'm a phenomenal mother. I think I have a lot of tools and resources. I have a tribe, a community that's helping me. I'm not like a single mother in any of the sense, really. I'm an unmarried woman, but that's about it. My son is thriving and doesn't really fall into the statistics that go under single motherhood. Nevertheless, he's a boy. I'm a woman. And the manipulation is still there. The lying is still there. The deceit is still there. And so it's how do I handle and approach these things? And so in our family, like there's a lot of rules. I don't think I'm super strict because I grew up in a strict household, but I do think I do have a lot of structure in place. I think kids thrive under structure, and so some things, right, I know about in a different way, and so I have different, maybe more rules, but whatever. One of the rules we have is, no electronics at dinner time. We have dinner at 7 every night together. This is family time with no electronics. And we don't even watch a lot of TV, but the screen is still like a TV, and he loves the screen. In addition to that, there is no electronics after 8:30. I think we changed it to 9. Bedtime is like 9. It's gotten later since he's gotten older. Since there's no electronics at that time, but also since I want to raise a responsible adult, I definitely myself push the boundaries of regulating a child's behavior versus letting them regulate it themselves, right? So I've set a foundation in place. And if the rule is there's no electronics after 9, then I would expect that to be followed. But he's a child, right? He's a child. And so there's been lots of times we had to, over maybe 2 or 3 years, go through the practice of me removing all electronics from his room at a certain time, right? So let's say, in the past it was 8 or 8:30, but let's say 8:30, I'm coming into the room to remove all the electronics. But because I want him to be responsible on his own, right, to do independent things on his own, more responsibility as he gets older, I am checking to see how much of this he can do on his own. So when I say I'm giving back the phone, or it's your job now to make sure you're off at 9, however you do that, here's a list of ideas that we've discussed. He's gonna try me. He's gonna try me, and he thinks he's smarter than me. He's not. He thinks he's smarter than me. So breaking those rules, hiding the phone, pretending you're sleeping, all those things, I think falls under what is very typical for boys and other kids to do at that particular age. We have had to have consequences, removal of electronics, more time I lecture, right? More time discussing things, reparative sort of consequences, writing a letter, calling someone, like a lot of different things that I've done to make sure that he understands the reason behind this. You're not just listening to me because I said so, but because this is going to be helpful to you when you turn into an adult, right? He's also done it with his chores, right? Pretending to do chores, pretending to put his clothes away when they're like hidden under the sheets. And he's also done it emotionally. So there's, sometimes he pretends to be upset. And I say pretend because he's not really upset. But he knows that exhaling in a certain way has gotten a reaction from me before. He knows, I do a lot of okay? I do a lot of those things. And so I've noticed him using them on me, but to get a reaction, right? And a lot of it is to get out of doing something or to be able to continue playing video games on his computer. None of this makes him a bad child, right? All of this is natural, normal, appropriate for his age. My job is to respond appropriately to the behavior so that I can continue training him to be responsible, honest, open, all those things. And I'm pleased to say I'm very successful at it. I really am. I help a lot of parents in the work that I do, right? My professional psychologist work. I help a lot of parents with the parenting piece of things. And so if a lot of stuff has not been ingrained by that 5 years, a lot of parents at 8, 10, 12, 15 have such a lack of control over what their kids do. Right? Like kids leaving the home, kids, becoming physical, kids, saying all kinds of disrespectful things. When parents learn from me to enact these boundaries and structure, the behaviors get worse. Let's just research the behaviors get worse before they get better. But one of the things kids need is that structure and the consistency. So you have to do it every day. You might slip up, but you have to be at it and you have to be committed to being consistent with parenting appropriately. I love little boys. That sounds so weird, right? Oh my God. Little kids are my favorite. Oh my gosh. My favorite, therapy age to work with is like 14 to 17-year-olds. I've done a lot of work with boys, but the 5, 6-year-olds are some of my favorite because even though they may not have had the training up until 5, they're still very malleable and open to like a loving adult coming in to help them. Like they want you to say no. They want you to say these are the boundaries. They want you to do what's in their best interests. Okay. So these are my thoughts on parenting. Let me know if you want me to do another parenting sort of video. I love being a mom. Like I think I would be so sad. I would be so sad if I didn't have a child. But I don't think that would have ever been me because even if I didn't have him like at 18, I would have had him in my early 30s, early 20s. But let me know what you think about this video. Remember to like, subscribe, share this video with someone you think it may help, and thank you for watching.